Hello and welcome to Module 6 of Online Reputation for Career Success. We've covered a lot of content up to this point, but now we're really getting into the heart of things. And one of the most important elements of the course is the concept of teaching all of you how to evaluate your online reputation. And remember, this is really tricky. As I've mentioned many times in several of the previous modules, a big element that comes into play here is someone's perspective. All of us are individuals with different backgrounds, points of view, potential biases, and that all comes into play when we review the online content about someone. And so in this course, in Module 6, we address learning outcome number 4. Remember, there are 5 in the course, and we've covered 3 so far. Let's just recap quickly what those are. The first thing that we did was address learning outcome number 1 to be able to define what we mean by online reputation or online identity. The second one is to look at the ability to research online identity or online reputation, and you've had lots of practice on that. And then the third outcome, which we addressed in the most recent module, Module 5, is explaining the importance of it as it relates to your career. So what do we mean by online reputation or online identity? How do we research it? Why is it important? And now here we are trying to figure out how we determine if one's or if our online identity or online reputation is good or bad. Again, this is very difficult because everyone looks at information in a different way. But the things that I want to stress to you here are that there are certain big categories of things that potential employers or current employers are probably looking for. If you're wanting to portray a strong or a positive online identity or online reputation, you should probably make sure that you have current content about yourself online. And that seems like pretty much of a no-brainer, right? That seems pretty logical, that if we're in our field, contributing to our profession, we want to make sure that there's current content out there about ourselves. So if results are more than 5 years old, or everything that we retrieve about ourselves is more than 10 years old, we've got some work to do in creating some content that is more up to date. So currency is one thing. And then I've created a rubric for you. You'll go through and you'll see the written lecture, but I've also created a rubric for you, a score sheet, if you will, to use to evaluate your online identity and online reputation. And in creating this rubric, it was kind of tough because there are no hard and fast rules here. It is not all black and white. There are many areas of gray. So currency seems like a pretty straightforward one, but then some of the other things were a little difficult, and I don't want you to use the rubric as the be-all end-all. I just want it to start those wheels turning and to provide a framework and to give you some guidance in helping you to evaluate your online identity. And what I'm hoping is that when you do the activity to research yourself and analyze those results that you find about yourself using this rubric, that you can then talk with your classmates on the discussion board and in the forum and come up with maybe some additional ones, or maybe discuss elements of the rubric that are more important than others, and see if we all agree on those things, and we may not. But currency is one. There were some other categories that I've included on your rubric as well, and that's the type of content that's there, how much is related to your career or profession, or is it all personal stuff, and is that bad? It's I think, in my opinion, nice if I can have a job candidate that I'm thinking of bringing in for an interview, or perhaps just have interviewed, and can find some information online about them that really relates to the field of library science, because that's the area I'm in. So I don't just want to see personal content about that candidate. I want to see content that's related to the field. So that was another area. An additional area on the rubric that I'm going to ask you to score is tone. Basically, this gets at the professionalism of the content. So there's a lot of things that come into play. The types of words you use. Certainly, in most professions, we don't want to see the use of profanity. But there's also a quality issue as it relates to content. So we want to see few grammatical errors and few spelling errors, which I think everyone's great at understanding the importance on a resume or a CV when you apply to a job. You always spell check, hopefully, or have a friend review that content to make sure it's error-free. But are you doing that with your online content? So I wanted that to be there as well. There are a couple other notes, and I've just touched on them briefly. But your online content isn't all written, and I'm sure you all know that already. If you're on social media, it's possible that your employers have an account on that same social media through which they can research you. So you need to be aware of your privacy settings. So if you're on Facebook, for example, and your employer has a Facebook account, when they look up your Facebook, what do they see? Are you sharing information with the world? Are you setting your privacy settings so that just friends or family see your posts and likes and all of that? So there's much content to consider, not just that even that we can bring up through a list of Google results or search results, but also things that are on social media sites. So if you have a Pinterest account, for example, what are the types of things you pin, and what does that say to a potential or a current employer? The same with Twitter, if you have a Twitter account, and other types of social media. So pay attention, because there's another part that comes into play here that we kind of haven't really discussed or touched on upon until now, that I really want to bring to your attention. That concept that there is other content there that's not just from the search results. So pay attention to that as well. So I did include a portion on the rubric for you to think about all your pins and posts and photos, all that content that might be out there. And if there are others that you can think of, please bring that up on the discussion forum this week and share with your colleagues. And then you'll notice at the top of the rubric there are a couple of blanks for you to write in the number of websites that you find about yourself and the number that you would not like an employer to see. Ideally, you want this number to be 0, I would think, at least for the ones you don't want the employer to see. But as far as that first number, how many websites come up, how many web results come up about you, there's no hard and fast rule as far as what's acceptable and what's not, and a lot of people argue various points. Some are of the opinion that if you have no online content, that's not a bad thing, because at least there's nothing negative about you. But then there's nothing positive about you either. So that number is very, very tricky. And I'll leave that up to you to decide. And some of this stuff really depends on your field, especially as we talk about tone and type of content that's out there. It may be perfectly appropriate for some folks to use certain kinds of language in certain creative fields, for example, where others of us in very conservative fields, that would be a career killer. So I hope you have fun making your way through the content in the written lecture. And again, remember, we're addressing the learning outcome evaluating online reputation and online identity. So make your way through the lecture, complete the short quiz, do the activity, and be active on the discussion board. Especially this week, it's very important because evaluation is such a tricky thing. So let's all talk about our opinions on that matter and our points of view. And then upon successful completion of everything in Module 6, I will see you in the last module of this course. Hard to believe. Module 7. So enjoy, and I'll see you soon.